You're standstill on the highway. It's a scalding 90 degrees outside, and you're doing all you can not to choke on the fumes. Your ears are bleeding with all the incessant honking and vulgar shouting, and you're forced to face the facts that you are not escaping this anytime soon. This is a much too common event for many commuters, an event publicly known as traffic, and having to drive in it can quite literally drive you insane. The fumes that these cars release and the environment that the multitude of cars can have creates a serious impact on both our mental and physical health. But not all hope has to be lost just yet. There's plenty of information out there to tell us how bad the cars and the exhaust fumes are for the environment, but not nearly as many to tell us why they're bad for us. So you may not know things like people with commutes with as short as 10 minutes of traffic are 3.2 times more likely to have a stress-induced heart attack. But an article titled Stress, Pollution, and Fatigue, published in 2015, tells us just this. The effects of stress from driving in traffic are just like any other types of stress. Irritability, depression, memory loss, elevated heart rate, increased blood pressure. This stress, day in and day out, can cause serious wear and tear on your body. I'm sure we can all agree that by the time you make it to wherever you're going, you are physically and emotionally drained. Not only does being in a car in traffic cause issues to our health, but being outside the car does too. Breathing in these fumes is never good, but breathing in exhaust fumes is even worse. If you're under the age of 25, breathing in these fumes is even more dangerous to your health. Before this point, your brain, specifically your prefrontal cortex, is still developing. This portion of your brain is responsible for planning, risk-taking, mood regulations. The reason that these fumes are so detrimental is because the chemicals bind to hemoglobin, and that prevents the oxygen from flowing to your brain. And just like us, our brain needs oxygen to function. So let's look at this one level deeper. Move past the physical and the biological effects and focus on the mental effects that traffic is having instead. So we begin with stress. As a recap, stress is bad for us. It comes with many negative side effects, one of which being irritability. And I would be willing to say that we have all experienced higher levels of stress and irritability when there are increased temperatures. Now, aside from Mother Nature, these increased temperatures come from all the fumes in the air. They make the air stuffier and to breathe, and it's a lot hotter as well. Breathing in these straight-level fumes makes it hotter, and it also intensifies your brain activity. Research teams at Harvard found that in 2011, the main parts of the brain that are affected, other than the prefrontal cortex, as I mentioned before, are personality, behavior, and decision-making. Three pretty important aspects when you're driving. So this might be a reason to explain road rage in so many people. Just by breathing in this air that is readily available to us, we're changing our personalities and who we are and the decisions that we would make. As I mentioned earlier, all this commuting time spent away from our family in traffic takes away from all the energy that we have to put into other relationships, such as family and friends. Relationships and the way we interact with other people play a huge role in our life and in our mental development. Healthy relationships are necessary to maintaining a healthy personality and an attitude towards other things. One of the most serious relationships that is affected by traffic is a child-to-parent interaction. As children are growing up, they need solid relationships with their parents for a role model and just developing in general. But children don't have the love and affection that they need from their parents when they're traveling and commuting and spending so much time in traffic. They're also at a more risk when you look at sound pollution. Caution published an article, Effects of Traffic Noise Around Schools, in 2015, and it informs us that when children are exposed to noise in prolonged times, it can lead to a psychological syndrome known as learned helplessness. Learned helplessness is a behavior that comes from constantly being exposed to a noise or an adverse stimuli. So when you have a child sitting in the back seat and they're constantly hearing the honking and not being able to escape this noise, it has a psychological effect on them. This begins in their development, and it gives them a feeling that they have no control over any situation, and they simply give up. It's linked to higher levels of depression and poverty when they have this syndrome. And children aren't the only ones who can get this syndrome. It's just easier for them to be affected by it because of the neurological connections that are still growing. But anybody can become victim. It's horrible, isn't it? To think that we live this life every day that we breathe in more and more fumes, and yet nobody is telling us the real damage we're causing to our body. Lucky for us, our genetics have our back. Our genes contain a natural defense. They produce proteins, which can help detoxify all the pollutants. But of course, our body can only do so much. The rest is up to us. One thing psychologists have suggested is to start your day off right and enter the traffic in a positive mood, instead of being dreadful of the drive. Some ways to do this are morning yoga, or eating a healthier breakfast, or meditation. Maybe some days you need to do all three, but eventually we have to get to the root of the problem, which is the traffic and the fumes. So there are programs like bike share programs all throughout different cities. You pick up a bike here and you drop it off wherever you are at a bike share program near that place. It's a practical way to avoid the traffic, and it gets one less car off the road and a little bit less fumes that day. Another movement that's on its way back is the train system. Public transportation is a great way to eliminate so many cars and to get more people from place to place with less fumes. I encourage you all to start waking up and changing your routine, to begin with a more positive attitude. Begin looking for alternative ways to get to work rather than driving your gas-guzzling car. Simply be more aware of the effects that you're having on people, their lives, and yourself by sitting in traffic. But in order for any of these solutions to work, you have to follow through and continue to show others just how serious of a situation that we have gotten ourselves into. Physically and mentally, these fumes and these cars are killing us. But it's not too late and we can't give up. Traffic and bad moods should not be ordinary. We should not have to sacrifice our sanity just to get to work or to lose it even more. So now I want you to imagine again. You walk outside, you take a long, deep breath of fresh, clean air. The only sounds you hear are the birds singing above and the wind whirring around the trees. You grab your bike, you head off to work under the beautiful sun and start your day. Doesn't that sound like a much better way to live? It does to me, and together